Hello, this is Matara Holder, and welcome on this sit down with me as we are going to delve into understanding the restructuring process that is going to take place at Cytonn. So with me, I have a guest who is going to introduce themselves before we actually dive into the discussion. So kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you very much, Holder. My name is Bernard Ochieng. I am an accountant, CPA by profession, practicing audit. This is my 13th year in the audit industry. Prior to that, I've done some corporate work, 3 years in a well-known large hospital in town, and 3 years earlier in a university also in town. So basically accounting is my thing. Other than that, I'm a Christian born again. I'm a pastor, an associate pastor in the local assembly that I go. So in relation to Cytonn, I am a member of the Creditors Restructuring Committee.
Okay.
Basically we call it CRC.
Okay.
Yes.
So, well, talking about restructuring, we can't exactly go beyond the fact that we might be talking about restructuring, but there are people who don't exactly get restructuring. So, if you could break down the restructuring process for us.
Yes.
Restructuring.
So, in a layman's understanding, just to avoid the excesses of financial and accounting terms,
Yeah.
restructuring simply means that you want to revamp something. You want to determine a course of action that is not going to kill an entity or make it come to an end with a sudden end or not, while at the same time there are particular investors who have to get their returns. Where we are at with Cytonn is that there are numerous court cases, both for and counter liquidation, which has been ruled by that process, how we got ourselves here to now restructuring. But now for us, part of creditors, quite a number of us, with having a greater representation of the debt portfolio, we thought that that is not the right route. The process has been too long, nothing is coming on board, and we decided to have some voices of reasoning. We have had discussions across the board with quite a number of stakeholders on the restructuring plan, and the management has made a proposal for a debt settlement plan. We've reviewed it, and we are reviewing it to align it with what would be in the best interest of creditors.
Okay.
Yes.
So, being that you sit on the restructuring committee, why exactly do you support restructuring?
I support restructuring because, for one, it will bring some kind of benefits that a liquidation cannot bring. For example, a liquidation process is a distressed process. Assets are sold, disposed of at a throwaway price. A restructuring process is a coordinated, a planned sale whereby assets are disposed at their fair value, and that means there will be much to share with the creditors, as opposed to liquidation, because liquidation won't have enough for creditors, and there will also be an order in which that is done. So some of the unsecured creditors will not be able to get anything, or will only get what is left after the secured creditors have been settled, based on what will be available. So that's one. Two, and to leave it at that point for now, is that with the liquidation plan, there is a huge haircut. Something in the insolvency process or liquidation process, it's called haircut. simply meaning that what are you able to forego when you are selling these assets at whatever amount that there is a buyer to buy. So there is a huge haircut. What will be available is basically about 14% for going 86%. And you see that already makes your investment, at least the principal investment, almost nothing. So for restructuring, we are fighting for at least 100% investment, principal investment. So we can be able to forego interest, from a certain point, but of course not everything, just to go away like that.
We are expecting success out of the restructuring process that we intend to undergo. So what specific financial metrics or performance indicators are we focusing on to gauge the success of the proposed restructuring?
So one of the success of the proposed restructuring is DSP, or what in the long abbreviation of that it means debt settlement plan, in which some of the assets that are near completion or require little work to be done to bring them to sellable value are acted upon quickly. When a buyer is found at a negotiated price, and then that asset is sold, it's brought into a value that is okay to sell it. What is remaining is given to the creditors, and a little portion of it can quickly be used to complete another asset that is almost at the completion value, and then sell it. So you see, the matrix of restructuring includes this. If you sell those assets in the state that they are, quite a number of them, then there's very little you're going to get from it.
Yeah, sure.
But if you improve them to a sellable state, then you are going to get much from it. So that is one of the matrix. So the other matrix is that we have to have some, what we call in the restructuring plan, consent agreement. A consent agreement is whereby we do not go the strict liquidation way. We agree as creditors to manage the selling process, and that agreement is a documented thing which is sanctioned by the court in order to stop those so many court cases that are for and countering liquidation. Yeah, so that the creditors now own the process, as opposed to a liquidator that probably on records on paper should act on behalf of creditors. But since the liquidator came on board, and for how long this has dragged with numerous cases and counter litigations, it appears that the liquidator is not acting in the best interest of all creditors. So the liquidator seems to have sided by a portion of creditors and left the rest out. And why am I saying so? One, we do not know the liquidation process from the OR, the official receiver. There is no liquidation plan. There are no regular updates. There are no regular meetings. There is not even minutes for the first creditors meeting that took place when the OR came on board. So those are the matrices about the restructuring process.
Okay. Now that we have mentioned creditors while talking about the metrics of the restructuring efforts. What message do you have for the creditors?
I have this message for the creditors, and of course my fellow creditors, because I'm a creditor. I'm sitting here first and foremost as a creditor.
Okay.
I'm not for Cytonn. I'm not their agent. I'm not their staff. I don't have a relative there. What has brought me to Cytonn is basically the investment, how it was sold out and blah blah, and I accepted it, the plan, and invested my money there. So first, I'm a creditor. So what I'm telling my colleagues and myself, I first have to tell myself and be convinced, is that one, let us support the restructuring process. Let us support the restructuring plan. Let us obtain and review the debt settlement plan that has been proposed by the asset managers, that is the Cytonn investment manager. The things that we don't agree with there, we enhance, because it's basically about us adopting what has been presented on the best interest of ourselves. And as a result, please sign the letter, the DSP letter, we call it like that, just commonly a DSP letter, that I give consent, I support the DSP plan. So that's one. Two, we are also aware that in the other hand, the OR requires creditors to sign something called the proof of debt. So that is for the common good. It's not coming from the CRC, but in our engagement with OR, because we already have had a very substantive meeting with OR. The minutes are out there, it was shared to all creditors. I believe they've read, understood, and if there is anything to clarify, they can always come back or get hold of us. But we are not waiting for them to get us from they don't know where. We are the ones who are now giving full updates in what is happening. So for the sake of that part, let us also sign the proof of debt with the OR. Because as it is now, legally speaking, the OR is in the center of the process of liquidation. But of course, it's not acting in our best interest. And we have a legal process window, if we are not comfortable with the OR, to seek for the alternative. Seek for the removal of the OR. In simple terms.
That's the alternative.
That's the alternative. Of course, there are two ways of doing that. By law, where, both are by law, but of course by the Insolvency Act, Section 468, which requires any person who is not in good, does not feel that the OR is acting in their best interest, to make an application in court and give proof of why you want to remove the OR, and that one we have, and apply for the removal of the OR. So the court listens and sanctions that. It's called agrees to your prayers, like literally praying. The application is praying. So that's one. The other one, which is not a strict legal route, is to call all the creditors within the portfolio of the assets in question, which is CPN, CHYS. The creditors who will be listening to this know what those terms mean. So call all these creditors to a meeting and deliberate on the process of removing the OR and get the threshold that's required in a way of voting. And the only thing you require for your voting is your partner number code, partner code. They know what that partner code is. So it's not a complicated thing. We meet somewhere and we are discussing this, and soon you'll be getting updates. So, and I think that is one way we are going to pursue this. And once that resolution is made, then we sanction it in court for adoption. And that's how we remove the OR. So once we remove the OR, so what? Who else now stands in? We have people who are called IPs, insolvency practitioners, who are private practitioners doing the exact job like the OR does. So the OR is a government, is a state servant, but there are also private practices, like state councils, and also these other councils that are in private practice, for example. So we are engaging an IP to come on board, who will now act on behalf of all these creditors for CPN, CHYS, and then coordinate a process to have a sale agreement, or rather consent agreement, remove some court cases that are, can go even beyond 15 years from now. Some of these investors are old, aging, fragile, sickly, but even if they are as young and energetic as I am, we do not have an assurance and a guarantee about tomorrow. That is left in the hands of God. So can I sit pretty because I'm still, I have many years ahead of me? Not at all. Yes.
So finally, to sum all this up, you have a minute to address stakeholders who are skeptical about the restructuring process. What exactly would you tell them?
Yes, I know that there would be some people, or already there are some people who are not, they are still waiting and standing or sitting across the fence to wait, wait and see.
Yeah.
But liquidation is not a better option either.
Why so?
Because of one, the legal process, two, the distressed sales, three, the huge haircut, 86%.
Yeah.
Four, the uncertainty that goes with that. And then five, that fatigue, that emotional, it's not an easy thing to know that your money you invested somewhere and you're losing and nothing is being done about it. Finally, about the same is not to really engage in unhealthy discussion, calling names, throwing tantrums, blaming, abusing. It's not going to help us as creditors. Let us come, reason to, if the good book says come, let us reason together. So this is a scenario whereby come, let us reason together, constructively and professionally. In the CRC, we have legal representative. We have 2 members of the CRC who are legal practitioners. In the CRC, we have 2 practicing accountants, myself and who is the treasurer of the CRC committee. In the CRC committee, we have somebody who has long outstanding experience in the banking sector and investment, retired actually, who is our chairman. And in the CRC, we also have a marketer, a practitioner who is doing marketing, and the language of business, the language of mobilization, the language of public relations is also there. And the final thing about restructuring is that as a CRC, we meet quite regularly. From when we just came into the office, when the creditors voted for us around October last year, and we are almost a year, we've gone around and visited all the assets of the CRC, of the Cytonn. We have made meetings with CIM itself and some hard talks, which are of course not easy, not comfortable, because we cannot sit from wherever we are and put comments all over in the social media which are ending nowhere except raising emotions and feelings negatively. We have also met the OR. It's not easy. We've met the OR. We have also met the management and board of one of the properties that our money were invested in, and that is Superior Homes Kenya Limited, which Cytonn invested 12.5% in that. And that is purely for the unsecured creditors. Does not even include the secured creditors. So the shareholding of that 12.5% is basically the unsecured creditors, which now we are championing on how to sell them, not under distressed liquidation process. It is not the SHK, the Superior Homes, that is being liquidated. No. They are operating, they are an independent company, blah, blah. It's only the stake, the 12.5% invested by the unsecured creditors' money that we now want to discuss. And we've already started discussing a coordinated sale, so that creditors that we represent, CRC, would get their money, and probably in the soonest time possible.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
and now we are planning to meet management and even board of the other secured creditors. We've written to them quite a number of times. Our timings have always not been in good timings with themselves, because they've been requesting for more time, study certain things, request some documents and details from us. We've provided, And finally, we've also written to the Attorney General, to meet the Attorney General. When we were just about to secure that, our good GMZs changed the course a bit on the demand of good governance, which we appreciate. Not that the old office holder did not want to meet us, but because of many other interests at play, we couldn't meet him as quickly as we could. But with the new one in the office, with the freshness, we are hopeful. Yeah.
So
for the AG to intervene, because see, the AG is the legal advisor of the government, and the OR is a department under the OG, under the AG's office. Sorry. So you see, if you're not getting headways with a section of your department, then we meet you, the boss.
Well put.
We have faith and confidence.
Well put. So even the numbers you're saying prove that restructuring is way better than the liquidation.
Way better than liquidation. It is not 100% perfect,
but it's better.
Way better, not just better.
It's way better, and that is something. So thank you so much.
You're welcome, and thank you also for having me.